manager.
And it was clearly footsteps.
Yes, it was very clearly footsteps. So I talked to the farm manager and I was like, so, well, you could have given me a heads up that I was going to run into a ghost while I was out there.
Welcome back, folks, to another episode of Careers Over Beers podcast. If you could, smash that like button. Smash that subscribe button. Today I have a special guest on from the local Wichita area who is a museum director. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Executive director.
Tell us about who you are.
Well, my name is Jacky Goerzen. I'm the executive director of Old Cowtown Museum. And I've been there since I started working at Cowtown in 2007, but I took over as director in 2016.
Nice.
So.
And did you have plans to become the director, or did that just happen?
It just sort of happened.
Yeah.
It was weird because one of my dreams from the time that I started there was like, God, someday it'd be really cool to run this place. But it's just one of those things that you just kind of have an offhand thought about.
You're just like, oh, there's no way it could happen.
Exactly.
But how cool would that be?
Exactly. And then the volunteer coordinator left, and she recommended me for her position. And so I took her position. And then I was on vacation when our director announced that he was leaving. I was in California on vacation with my daughter.
Yeah.
She was doing a audition in LA. So we were all the way in LA, and my whole family is with me. And I get this call, and it's, so the director resigned. Do you think you would be interim? And I was like, sure.
Yeah.
Of course I will. So from that point, it was kind of like, is this really happening? Like, I had to pinch myself a couple times. Like, am I really
It's one of
in
those
the running
moments.
for these?
It's one of those moments in life where you're like, wow, this is actually going down.
Exactly. This is actually really happening. Okay. So it almost felt surreal. Like, did I write a script somewhere and somebody's following it? Like, I'm actually getting this job.
Well, hell yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
We're drinking some more beer today.
Yes.
That's your beer of choice.
It is. It's my
seems.
favorite. Yeah.
That's what you requested. So shout out to Walnut River Brewing Company. Actually, I just had BJ Hunt on not too long ago. He's the one that's in charge of Walnut River.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, he's a co-owner of it now.
Well,
but he's also the co-founder.
Well, they do good work.
So they do great work. I mean, I forget what he told me this was called before it was Warbeard. There was some kind of a corny name because BJ is just the guy that kind of runs the show and kind of tells him what he likes and this, and then there's the other guy that brews all the beer.
Okay.
That's how they started anyways. And he said it had some kind of a corny name, and he's like, no, that's got to change. So they got the name Warbeard and came up with this cool logo.
That is very,
Thank God they did.
I know. It's amazing how many people that know this beer and it's like, oh yeah, no, I love that one.
For sure, yeah.
And I'm really not a big beer drinker, but I tried this and I was like, okay, yeah, that works. Yeah. I can do that.
Well, I always let the guests choose what they want to drink on this, and I've had several people request Warbeard now.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
It's super popular. So shout out to BJ Hunt and Walnut River Brewing.
That's right. Good job.
And cheers, Jackie.
Yep.
Just as tasty as I remember.
Right.
Which
That's
was
the good stuff.
A few nights ago.
That's what I was going to say, not that long ago, probably.
All right, so you kind of gave us a little bit of a backstory there already, but that's basically how it happened, where you became the director.
Yeah.
You were on vacation, you got that phone call, and you just kind of took it right there. You're like,
yeah.
All right, we're doing this.
Pretty much. It was, I got back, and they made me interim, and I was interim for, I think, 3 months before I got officially put into the position. Mm-hmm. But yeah, from that moment on, it was just kind of like pedal to the metal. Oh my God, what am I doing?
Learn as you go, I guess.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Can you tell everybody what Old Cowtown Museum actually is?
Yes. So we are a 23 or 25 acre, depending on who you ask, somewhere in there. Yeah, I know.
It varies
It varies by who you ask, because some people say we're 23 and some people say, oh no, we had it on the farm, we're 25, so I'm not sure. But I usually say 23. We're a 23-acre living history museum, and we focus on Wichita and Sedgwick County history from about 1865 to 1880, but we also cover just general Western history. Mm-hmm. So that's where most of our buildings are from, is from Wichita and Sedgwick County, and where we focus a lot of that local history, but we also just tell the story of the development of America as westward movement happened.
Yeah, basically the Old West.
Yeah.
The
We're
museum
Old West.
focuses on the Old West, really.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Which is really fun.
Most of those buildings are actually old, too, right?
Yes, most of the buildings are old. A lot of them are from Wichita. Some are from just around Wichita. Like our grain elevator is from Bentley. Our depot is from Anness, Kansas. So different buildings are from around Kansas, but generally really close to Wichita or in Kansas.
That's so
I don't
cool.
think we have any that are from outside of Kansas. I think they're all Kansas buildings.
It's really cool. And so you were just interested in that stuff when you came to Cowtown back in 07? Or?
I was. It was weird. So when I was a kid, and this is terrible advertising for Cowtown, I moved to Wichita in 1990 when I was just a kid. And we took a field trip to Old Abilene Town. And so I kept making my mom take me to Old Abilene Town because I didn't know Cowtown existed right in Wichita. I had no idea.
You're kidding.
No. And then in 2003, I went there for a birthday party. My sister-in-law was in town, and she was having my nephew's birthday at Cowtown. And I remember it was 2003 because my daughter was a baby at the time because they tried to get her to volunteer because they said she was a pretty baby. So I remember that very distinctly. And it was like, oh, wow, I didn't know this was here. This is really cool. Well, flash forward a couple years, I was with my kids at a field trip, and we went to Cowtown. It was Education Day, and the guy that was running the education department at the time had daughters at my kids' school. Mm-hmm. And he said, we're looking for part-time help for Christmas. Is that something that would interest you? And at the time, I was a stay-at-home mom. I had my two girls who were 4 and 6, I think. And then I had just had my son. He was 3 months old at the time. And I was like, I'm a stay-at-home mom. I could get some money for Christmas. That would be really cool. And so that was in November of 2007.
Wow.
And I've never left.
Never left there, huh?
Nope.
So it's just kind of one of those things in life you just stumbled upon.
It was. And I remember being really sad when my time as a part-time person for that Christmas stuff, when that was ending. I remember being really sad because I was going to miss it so much. And I was like, no, I'm supposed to be here. Gosh, this really sucks. I don't want to leave.
You knew it was something you really enjoyed.
Yeah. And then I got a phone call that was, hey, so we need help with this. Can you come back? Sure. So,
hell yeah.
Yep.
Sign me up.
Exactly. So I just kept saying yes to everything they offered me, and now look where I ended up. No.
Maybe it's the secret, right?
It is.
That's
just
how
say
you,
yes.
That's how you become the director of the place. You just keep telling them yes.
Yep. It worked for me.
So you were going up to Old Abilene, which has Eisenhower's library and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I've been up there.
Yeah, I haven't been up there since they redid the Eisenhower part of it. Mm-hmm. So I want to go up there and see that. I think the last time I was up there was probably, I don't know, almost 10 years ago now. So a long time.
We went on field trips up there, I think, when I was in school. We'd do like the chocolate factory. And hit Eisenhower's. Yeah.
Yeah. We did Eisenhower's in Old Abilene Town. And then when I took my kids up there, we did the Museum of Independent Telephony, which is the most obscure little museum. And it just had the history of phones, exactly what it sounds like. The history of telephones. Yeah, so they had all the way from the very first phones up to early cell phones, but they had a phone booth there that my kids thought was absolutely fascinating. And then they had a working...
Like, no way, they existed?
Exactly. It's not just something out of a movie. They had like a working desk where you could route the calls like the old telephone operators
would,
used
like,
to do.
Pull the plugs and push them into the other ones. Yeah.
And you could switch the calls and stuff.
I've seen that before.
Yeah. I'd seen it in movies, but I'd never seen it. And then I was there and it was like, oh, this is really cool. This is how they did it.
Just connect you, And then they'd listen into every phone call you make. All the neighborhood gossip.
Yep,
right?
Yeah. Got to get all the latest news so they can pass it on.
So, did your kids already know what those were when you showed them like an old rotary phone or like an old bring, bring?
No, they'd sort of seen them in like some videos and stuff, making fun of how kids didn't know them, but they had never really handled one before, so that was fun to watch.
I remember my brother. He's almost 10 years younger than me, so he was born in 2004. Yeah, and he was like. We were at a museum or something sometime on a family vacation, and I remember we were showing him the phone, and my dad told him to hang it up, and it was just hanging by the cord, Yeah. And he was like, there's no end button. Like, yeah, you got to hang it on the receiver, and he just couldn't comprehend that. He's like, what do you mean? Like, where do you push, like, end, Yep. It's like, just numbers on this dial. It's hilarious to see. I mean, how fast that changed, too.
I know, and it was a really quick transition between everybody had a home phone and nobody has any idea how to operate those because everybody's on a cell phone. Yeah,
it's like my brother and I, 10 years apart, and it's like that big of a difference already.
It's weird.
Because we grew up I mean, when I grew up, I was still memorizing my friends' home numbers.
Yeah.
You know?
Because that's what they had.
That's
Everybody
all they
had the home number.
You had to talk to the parents every time.
That's what I was going to say. I had to call up and like, please don't let his mom answer. Please don't let his mom. Oh, no, it's the mom.
Can Jimmy come play?
Exactly.
Yeah. Good times. Kids will never know now.
No, they have it so easy now. Now they just get to contact their friends directly and completely route around the parents.
It's not as fun.
It's definitely
everything
not
is at their fingertips.
Right? It's definitely not as character building, I don't think.
No. Nobody has to try for anything anymore.
Nope. It's very simple now.
They'll never know the pain of having to look for your friend's bikes somewhere so you can meet up with them. You know?
Well, because you had to see where everybody's bikes were, because that's where everybody was hanging out.
That's where they were.
Yeah. I know. I always think about that my kids didn't get that experience of just having their friends in the neighborhood, and you were just kind of stuck with whoever lived close to you. Right. That's who you were going to hang out with.
Well, you could have given them that experience, make them grow up in Cowtown.
Well, they did kind of grow up in Cowtown, and they will tell you that all of them are pretty experienced at being at Cowtown.
Yeah.
That's actually my daughter, who I brought with me today. She is going to do our summer programs. We have several, or not summer, but school programs that we've got in April and May. We've got several of them, and she's in early childhood education. So I was like, so we need extra people, and you have this degree you want to get. How about you just come?
How about you just do that?
Yeah, and so she agreed to it because she's a good girl.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it'd be fun too. I mean, I know my mom volunteered for a while.
Oh yeah, she was
great. I think
great.
my brother did too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the gunfights, all that stuff, that'd be fun to volunteer for.
Yeah.
As long as it doesn't end up like Alec Baldwin's gunfight. Right?
No, definitely not. We are way safer than that.
Because I know you guys do that, right? You do duels and stuff with reenactments.
Yeah, we do. But we have some of the most stringent safety protocols.
Yeah.
I mean, we're so paranoid about that. And the rush shooting happened, and I was like, yeah, that would never happen in our
you
place.
would think, like a Hollywood movie with that big of a budget, they'd have their shit together. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it's pretty basic when it comes to safety. Check and make sure the gun's empty. That's like step one.
Try not to keep live ammo. I mean,
we don't ever allow live ammo anywhere in the museum.
Yeah.
So you can't even get past the gate with it. We check everybody. But if you know that there's live ammo out there, check the gun.
Yeah.
That's basic.
I know, it's crazy. I mean, it's one of those things you're like, what? That's happening in 2022 or 2021, whatever it is. Somebody's getting shot on a movie set.
The Crow was pretty surprising when that happened, and that was in the 90s sometime. I should know that.
Which one was that? Was that Bruce Lee?
Brandon Lee.
Brandon Lee.
Yeah, Bruce Lee's son.
Okay.
And I can't remember what year that was. I should know that. I know it was in the 90s.
Well, speaking of the 90s, you said that you were going up to Abilene because you didn't know Cowtown existed.
Yes.
How long has Cowtown been around?
Since 1955.
Are you serious?
Yes. It was incorporated in 1950 and opened to the public in 1955.
So those buildings were only like 50 years old then at the
right?
time.
So I should have known they were there in the 90s, but I didn't.
I didn't know it was that old.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're starting our 73rd season this year.
Dang, that's news to me.
Yeah.
I guess when something's focused around being really dated, you don't realize that it is an old museum itself.
Yeah, well, and that was something that we've had to focus on too, is not only focusing on the history of Wichita, but remembering to preserve the history of the museum itself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what is often said in the museum industry, is museums are the worst at keeping their own history. But you have to do it because it's been so invaluable to me to look back so many times and see how things have changed, or how we used to do an exhibit, or some of the things that were done there that were just awful that we know now are not good museum practices, but they were done in the past.
What are some of those things?
They had chicken wire over the exhibits.
Really?
So, like, instead of having any kind of plexi or ropes or anything, it was all chicken wire. And they had mannequins in there to represent people, which are still at some museums, but they're just creepy.
I would agree. Yeah. You don't want to be walking around there at night looking at a bunch of mannequins.
No, that would create, like Night at the Museum, that would creep me out.
Yeah.
I'd just be waiting for him to come to life. I stayed the night at Museum of World Treasures one time. Actually, twice. Well, but one time was in the where the mummies are, which shared a wall with Heroes, which is really great when you're with a Girl Scout troop and you're trying to get little girls to go to bed. And Heroes is over there going, dum, dum, dum. It's like, okay, this isn't going to happen.
Yeah.
But that was a really, I hope they don't come to life experience, because we're laying right next to the mummies.
Especially if you're a fan of those movies, you know, you're probably hoping for that.
Right.
But I had Kristen on with Museum of World Treasures.
I love her.
Yeah.
She's great.
She came on here and told me all about it. How she told me like 80% of their artifacts are kept behind closed doors.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
And I was like, what? She's like, yeah, that's how all the museums do it. You only see like a small portion. And I was like, you're kidding me.
No, you see so little of what our collection has. Over 25,000 pieces in it at Cowtown.
Really?
And there are definitely not that many on display.
So do you guys have like a warehouse or something you store most of those in? Or
we have a couple different places that we store. Yeah, that we store the collection. A lot of them are on grounds, but in locked up areas that nobody but me and the curator have access to.
Okay.
So, but yeah, there's a ton of stuff that we've tried to figure out ways. We do temporary exhibits, and so we tried to figure out ways to bring out small pieces of that collection. But a lot of it, some of it's too fragile to put out, and some of it is just in bad shape, and we don't want anybody to see it. We're preserving it, but I'm not sure why, but it's there.
What's one of the cooler artifacts you have? Like, what's your favorite personally?
Oh gosh, we have so many. We have a lot of really cool medical equipment that's stored in one of the buildings. So we've got like an old anesthesia set that's really neat. That's probably one of my favorites just because it's just cool to look at and it's cool to think about. I get weird when it comes to artifacts. I always think about the people that held them before me or the people that used them and like try to imagine what that was actually like, which is I think part of my weird thing with history because I do that with buildings too. Like who was in here and where did they go?
I kind of get that way too. A little bit wanderlust where you're like, man, think about at some point somebody was holding this.
Exactly.
And now I'm holding it and it's in a museum. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's got all this history to it.
It's a weird thought.
It is. So whenever you're looking at artifacts, it's weird to think about that. It's weird to think about people that own them and who donated them and how did they make their way to a museum? Mm-hmm. How did they go from being something that a family treasured to now it's just on a shelf under a cloth in a museum.
The people that cared about it died.
Exactly.
And the kids are like, we can probably get something for this.
Exactly. We can donate this somewhere, right? So, yeah.
Have you ever had anybody try to reclaim an old item that was theirs?
No.
No?
We've had people ask where the things that they donated are displayed, and then that takes a minute to try to locate, that's...
Track it down.
Yeah, a lot of the work for the curator to get to track down where those things are. But yeah, nobody's ever tried to reclaim anything. We've had a lot of people that have showed up that have connections to different things and just want to see them.
Yeah.
They belong to their family and they just know that it was donated and they want to see where it went.
That's
and
cool.
I think that's one of the cool things that museums can do is they can store that family stuff for you that you don't have room for, but then you can go back and visit it.
Yeah.
So,
kind
of the keepers of everybody's history, not just what's in the museum, but a community's
history. It's pretty cool,
history.
and you're trying to preserve it,
Exactly.
Which most people don't have the time nor the knowledge to preserve things.
Yeah. It's definitely a specialized field. So it's really cool when you can trust a museum with your personal stuff, when you can say, okay, this was all my family's, but I don't want to keep it in a garage anymore. Can you guys do something with it? And then it's a big responsibility to then go, oh, yeah, sure, we'll take that on.
So how does that happen? Like if somebody brings something in, do they come and see you and then they're like, hey, I want to give this to you guys? Is there like a protocol they have to meet to be in the museum or?
Yeah, generally they have to meet with our curator and he will determine if the item is something that's within our time period. So that's one of our biggest things, is it has to fall from that 1865 to 1880 time frame. If we're going to display it, older is fine. It can be pre-1865. It just can't be post-1880s.
Okay.
Because it gets too late. So they go and talk with him, and then he makes that determination, and he's got intake paperwork and all that kind of stuff that goes with it. So.
And you're not buying it from anybody, right?
Right.
It's all donation.
Yeah, it's all donation. If we do buy artifacts, which a lot of museums do, and we have before, we've done things like bought instruments off of eBay when we were starting our music store. But usually they come with some kind of knowledge of when they were made. They come with verification, that kind of thing, which we usually call provenance. And generally you want provenance to be something like, this was my grandfather's and I can prove that he had it this whole time. So that's why buying artifacts gets a little bit iffy because you don't really necessarily...
You don't know the history behind it.
Yeah, you don't have that verified history. You have what the person on eBay is telling you. But
we all know that you can't trust everybody on the internet.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Has anybody ever tried to donate something that's really weird?
Oh God,
like
I'm sure
funny weird or
I'm sure they have a
gross.
lot of. There was somebody who donated something and they thought we could use it for the clothing closet, like for the volunteers to wear.
Yeah.
And it was the grossest leather fringe jacket thing that smelled like about 20 years of dog. And I don't know what and so I'm just like, oh, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll wear that.
We'll take that.
No problem.
Yeah. And yeah, obviously nobody ever wore that, but it was nice of them to think of us. We've gotten quite a few. The most funny donations come for the costume closet.
Yeah.
Because people think they know what 1870s clothing is, and so they give us these things. And
they don't really know.
No. There are a lot of pictures of us dressed up in them being goofy because we're like, look at what they donated. Looks like a square dance outfit.
Any like lingerie or anything like that?
Some really weird stuff from Tombstone. Somebody donated a bunch of stuff from Tombstone that they
had
used. No, like from the historical site from the city of Tombstone. And it was stuff that they must have used in the saloon there that's not what we would use here. And so, yeah, a lot of it was lingerie type stuff that was just, I don't think we're going to get away with that.
Stuff the ladies of the night would wear back then.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you are in a cool spot because Wichita's history is very cool when it comes to like Delano and the things that used to happen down there back in the 1800s. I'm sure you're aware of all that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have an event coming up on May 12th. That's a night in Old Delano. That's all about that sordid history of Delano. And the ladies of the night will be making an appearance.
Will they really?
We'll have some gunfights.
You'll have to let me know the date on that.
Yeah, we did that a couple years ago. And it's really funny. We sell these brothel tokens up in the gift shop that I don't remember exactly what they say. It's like good for girls' food or something. And there were people that actually bought these and tried to buy us because I was dressed up as one of the ladies of the night.
They thought it was legit?
Yeah, and so this guy is like, so what do I get for this? And I was like, an imaginary girl. And he's like, but I have two. I said, oh, then you get two imaginary girls. He's like, so you won't come down here? I was like, no, I'm good.
But I thought we were banging hookers here. What the hell?
Right. Thought prostitution was legal tonight.
I thought we bypassed it. We're back in the 1880s.
Right.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Those poor old guys. You should have made a disclaimer on that one. Like,
I probably should have. Sorry, you can't actually trade this on grounds for any of us.
We're not actually letting you.
Yeah, we're not actually prostitutes. We're just playing them for tonight.
That is great.
Yeah.
Have you ever had any guests in the museum do other things that are weird like that? Try to use stuff that they shouldn't or try to...
We've had people use the outhouses.
Are you serious?
Yeah. We have boards over them now, so you can't use them because people thought,
You're kidding.
Those were our bathrooms. I'm not sure. We had a lady, and we didn't know this till after it happened. Our curator was watching the cameras, and I don't think he'll mind me telling this story. He's watching the cameras, and he immediately called me, and he's like, you've got to see this. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure. So I go and watch the cameras. Me and most of the staff went and watched the cameras. And it's this cute little old couple. They're probably in their 60s. They're going through town. She's got a little cane, and they're walking through town. And then they stop at the newspaper at the Wichita Eagle building.
Yeah.
And it's got kind of a little area that comes out, that the two walls come out. So the door is here, and then the windows come out. So there's kind of this standing area that you can stand in the middle. It's like an alcove. And so she goes, and they both look either way. And she goes and stands right up against the door, and he takes a camera, and she lifts her dress up, has nothing on underneath it. He takes a couple pictures, she puts it down, grabs her cane, and they keep going.
You're kidding.
Nope. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen.
Raunchy old minds.
I know, and it was, luckily there was nobody else on the street. Nobody saw it. He just happened to catch it on the cameras, and it was like, that's happening at our museum. I had no idea.
That's going in their personal collection probably, right? Unless they have an OnlyFans.
I have to wonder, like, do they do that everywhere? Like, do they just go places and he takes pictures of her? I don't know their relationship, but I'm fascinated by that.
Maybe they have an OnlyFans, and it's
they
like
might.
Older couple goes to different places and flashes the camera. Yeah. Today we're back in 1880.
Right. Look at me. Yeah, that was one of the funnier ones.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So we get the best of the public and the worst of the public, I think.
Yeah.
But it's fun.
What about people that are naive? Do you have people that ask questions that just literally have no idea about anything?
Yeah. And we had a teacher that it was just like, what are you thinking? We have the Munger House, which is the first house in Wichita. It was started in 1869 or started in 1868 and finished in 1869. And then there's a little cabin next to it that we call the Trapper's Cabin. Mm-hmm. And it was built in about 1865 on the Chisholm Trail, but we don't have official provenance on it, so we can't say it's our oldest building, but we all know it's our oldest building. This teacher tells the kids that that was the slave cabin for the people who lived in the bigger cabin. I was like, we're in Kansas.
Just pulled that out of their ass?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, there was no slavery in Kansas. This is not a slave's cabin.
Yeah.
And we tried to tell her that, and she for real said, well, that's what they want you to think. Like, you're right. I'm not going to argue with you.
The kids, it makes it sound better for the kids.
Right. She knows things we don't know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was.
Okay.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. But, yeah, we've definitely had people that, we've had kids that I think, and it's sad. It's funny, but it's also sad because we've had kids that didn't know what the cow was. They didn't know what kind of animal she was. They saw her and they'd never seen a cow before, so they didn't know it was a cow.
What?
Yeah. There was a cow. The cow was peeing one time, and the kid asked me if that was milk.
Yeah, grab a bucket.
I know. I was like, I don't think you want to drink that, sweetie. So that one's, it's more, that's
didn't
more
know what
sad.
A cow was.
Yeah, but they didn't know what
That's
a cow was.
interesting.
Yeah. And we had some girls that broke in. Did you ever hear about that?
No.
They made a YouTube video. These ding dongs. They're teenage girls, and they broke into Cowtown, videotaped themselves breaking into Cowtown, and then walking around Cowtown while it's closed. And we had a baby calf there at the time, and she's in the pen with her mom. And they decided somehow the carpenter shop was the Murdoch house. I'm not really sure where they got that one, but they jumped to the carpenter shop was the Murdoch house. So we're sitting behind it, and from there you can kind of see where the baby cow was.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, there's a baby something over there. Let's go look. And they get over, and you can clearly see it's a baby cow. And they go, oh, it's a baby animal. Isn't it cute? And I'm like, it's a cow, sweetie.
Is our education system failing us that badly right now?
I'm wondering.
Well, I mean, what the hell?
But, yeah.
Was this recently?
It was a couple years ago.
They were probably trying to put it on TikTok, or
was
it for YouTube?
It was up on YouTube. Yeah, it was up on YouTube, which I was sent it by someone who was like, did you know these girls broke in? No.
So let's commit a crime and then upload it.
Yeah, we called the cops on them. So, I mean, if you're dumb enough to broadcast your crime, I guess you're...
And also dumb enough not to identify what a baby cow is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was one of the best, because we still laugh about that. Oh, it's a baby animal.
It's a baby, yeah. It sure is.
Because you could tell she had no idea what it was.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And if you don't even know what a baby cow is, you probably don't know anything about the Old West.
No, or about the cattle trade or anything else. So I'm not entirely sure why they were in there. I guess it's just a thing to do, break into a museum and walk around.
I guess, yeah.
I think Cowtown has an unusual stance, though, of not necessarily being seen as much as a museum as a park.
Mm-hmm.
So people don't quite get that it's a museum. They see it more as just a park that you can walk around in, because we've had people that will drive in after hours. Well, parks are open until sunset. Yeah, well, this isn't a park. This is a museum. It's a different thing. So I think we're in an unfortunate position of getting...
It's unfortunate, but it's also cool, because you have, you're unique in that sense, where you have basically a whole town.
Yeah.
That's like back in 1880 or 1870 or whatever.
Yeah.
And so most museums, while you might get to see artifacts and stuff from back then, in Cowtown, you could actually walk through it.
Yeah.
Walk the streets.
Yeah, which is one of the coolest parts of my job.
Yeah.
Is that I can do that anytime I want.
Anytime you want, yeah. You can walk around and pretend like you're way back in the day.
Yes, and I do sometimes.
Do you?
Yeah, I do.
Which I don't know. I mean, I'm sure the Wild West wasn't as fun or as glamorous as we like to think in the movies.
Yeah.
It's probably a lot harder of a life.
I think it was a lot dirtier.
Dirty, yeah. Well, I just always think about people, the smell of people.
That's what I think of. I think of the lack of hygiene when I think, like, it's like, oh, that would be so cool to go back then. Actually, no, it wouldn't.
They might have just been used to it, though.
That's true.
Honestly.
Get desensitized to Well, and you will, if you're around the right people in Cowtown in the summer, you could get desensitized to it. Actually, a meme that I send out at the beginning of every summer to all the volunteers that says, please don't forget your deodorant.
Yeah, especially if you're dealing with school kids that are running through.
Oh my gosh, yes. I have so many school kids.
Yeah, I know that smell.
Yeah, middle school? Whew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which sounds a little creepy. Now that I say that out loud.
No, I know what you're talking about,
Yeah.
though. Because they're right at that age where they don't necessarily shower every day, but they should.
Yeah, nor do they care a
Nope.
lot of times.
Nope.
But you have farm animals, too, so
That's
tell
true.
us about your animals on there.
Yeah, we've got a very, very old cow named Rosie.
Very old.
She's
How
been
old
there
is that?
longer than I have.
Oh, really?
Yes, I've been there. I'm in my 16th year now, and she was already an adult when I started.
That's
so
badass.
she's like 18-ish
Yeah.
and still going strong. She's a sweetheart. She's like the sweetest cow you could ever meet, which sounds weird to say that a cow is sweet, but
Cows
if you
are
know
sweet
this-
animals.
Yeah, she's incredibly sweet. She loves to wipe boogers on people, so she will like.
Some cow boogers.
Yeah, she'll
Yeah.
give you a nice little dose of cow boogers. I've never gotten slimed. That's what we call it. I've managed to dodge out of her way, but she's tried.
Yeah.
So we have her, and then we have two sheep, Hastings and Wally Wally. Hastings is the mom, and Wally Wally is the baby.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a bunch of chickens. And then we've been getting some Longhorn cattle. From,
Oh, really?
Yeah, from KWLS. They've been giving us a couple of.
Oh, that's dope.
Yeah, they usually give us pregnant Longhorns, so then we have babies.
Nice.
You know, baby animals.
Little baby animals. Yeah, it's a baby
Thing.
horn thing.
And then we have more chickens in town. So we have two places that we have chickens.
Do they lay eggs in the museum?
They do.
Yeah, so you guys get to
Yeah.
collect those and
Yeah.
use them?
Yep.
That's cool.
And then we have lots of cats that keep the mice down, or at least hypothetically keep the mice down.
Yeah, they do, actually. I grew up out in the country, and
Yeah.
we never had any mice in the house because we had a couple cats.
Yeah, we have a couple in the administration building now because we used to have mice in there pretty
Yeah.
bad, and they keep the mice down, but they're also very fat and content now. So I'm not sure how they would react if a mouse got in there now. They would be like, oh, hey, a toy.
Do the guests ever feed the animals?
They can feed Rosie some treats, and they can feed the sheep some treats, but we don't have like the machines like they do at the zoo. We've talked about getting those.
Do they ever do it like against your guys' will, though?
Oh, yes,
Like,
absolutely.
hand the cow a cookie or...
We had someone who gave our cow a Snickers. It's like, yeah, so cows don't eat those.
They will, though.
They will.
Apparently.
Yeah. We had a goat for a while, and that little thing would eat anything. Oh, my gosh.
Oh, goats will eat anything.
Yes,
and they can eat anything, too.
He was a pain. We ended up rehoming him because he kept, no matter how high we built the fences, he would hop over the top.
Yeah.
So we rehomed him. But yeah, the guests are they are interesting with the things they will feed. They tried really hard to feed her straw because I think a lot of people don't understand the difference between hay and straw.
Yeah.
So they don't know that straw is not food, and so they would like shove it in her face, and
Yeah.
she's kind of like,
It's like, I don't want that shit.
why are you feeding me my bed? What the hell? So yeah, it's interesting basically having a little farm in the middle of the city because there are
Yeah.
a lot of people that don't. Like I said, they don't know what the animals are. They don't know how farms are. And some of the complaints that we get are hilarious. I mean, somebody was insistent that the cow had a cold because she had.
It's not running out.
Yeah. I said, no, she's a cow. Yeah, but she must have a cold because her nose is running. No, she's a cow.
Oh,
That's just how cow noses
people
are.
are so stupid.
Yeah, it's painful.
That's cool, though. You got a little farm there. You know, my grandma, she told me she was 92 when she died last year.
Oh, wow.
And she said that, you know, in Colwich here, and I'm sure it was the same in most places around Kansas, that everybody used to have their own cow.
Really?
And for milking and stuff, yeah.
Oh, well, that makes sense. Before you have grocery stores.
Yeah. And that was when she was a little girl, so we're talking 30s probably.
Oh, yeah.
And before. Like most households around would have their own cow in like a little shed where they would milk it and stuff.
I've heard that before because there's pictures of old Wichita that you see the same way, that everybody has a little yard because they have a cow and they have chickens and they're growing.
Right. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
What was at Cowtown back in 1880? Do you know?
It was sandbar. It was just riverfront.
Just a sandbar?
Yeah. It was just river.
Yeah. Because there used to be an island out there, you know, by the exploration place.
Oh. Yep.
Oh, you're good.
I'm
You
just
can
gonna-
move these around as much as you want. There was a big island there. I know that they
Yeah.
dug out by hand back in the day.
I remember hearing that. And I know the Chisholm Trail ran through not far from Cowtown. We're one of the stops on the Chisholm Trail. So it ran through part of Cowtown and then kind of over. But, yeah, most of Cowtown was just riverbank. So there wasn't really anything there. Till they moved, when they moved the Munger House there, which is right around 1950. That was the first building that was moved there for Cowtown.
For the museum.
Yeah. The first four buildings were the church, the Hodge House, the Munger House, and the jailhouse.
Okay.
So. And Hodge, we didn't find out the history of until 2011.
What's the history?
It belongs to an early African-American family in Wichita.
Oh, yeah?
But the neat part is when it was donated in the 1950s. Well, what was the racial climate like in the 1950s?
Worse than it was now.
Yeah. So it was told to the museum when the church and the house that went with the church were donated. That was what they called it, the little house that goes with the church. They called it the parsonage. They said, oh, that's where the pastor lived. It was the pastor's house. Nobody questioned it because, church pastor's house. Okay, that makes sense. Well, then when our curator in 2011 was doing research, she was like, wait a second, these addresses. And she figured it out that the church, which was the first church in Wichita, was also the first colored boarding house in Wichita, owned by the African-American family that lived in the little house that came with the church.
Really?
Yeah. So
colored boarding house.
That's what they called it. Yeah, it was the colored hotel. So it was a hotel for African-Americans.
Oh, so it was a place that you could stay.
Yeah.
Because they probably couldn't stay in a normal hotel.
Yeah. So you had a specialized hotel for African-Americans.
Really? That's interesting.
Yeah. And so...
so that was in the 1800s then?
Yeah.
Well, I guess it had to have been if it's in your museum. But.
Yeah, it was in the 1800s. They, the husband and wife moved to Wichita, and the husband was a blacksmith.
Yeah.
And then he passed away, and she still had two teenage kids to support, and she was alone. And being a woman in that time was very different than it is now, especially being a black woman in that time.
Exactly.
So she was amazing. I absolutely love her story, that she bought the church and turned it into a boarding house and ran the boarding house.
Crazy.
Yeah, just her. Her and her daughter ran the boarding house. And
modern people will never know the struggle of that.
No. And it's amazing because like her daughter's wedding was in the paper along with all the guests that attended and the gifts that they got. And she was mentioned several times. They called her Mother Hodge. She played the organ. Hodge. Yeah, she played the organ at the Calvary Baptist Church. And so it was really neat to see that. Mm-hmm. And then to kind of look at how race was treated in early Wichita, like how did that devolve? Because obviously she was well respected. She was treated very well.
Yeah.
So when did that start kind of...
I mean, Wichita, from what I understand, I'm not a historian by any means, but I think it was a lot better than a lot of other places in the U.S., especially southern places.
Yeah.
Because we were never a slave state.
Exactly. We came in as a free state.
But, I mean, Cowtown's also, everything is pretty much post-Civil War, right?
Yeah, we started
There's nothing
right when the
slave-related really in Cowtown, is there?
No. And we don't address it much because it was outside of our time period.
Yeah.
And really that's one thing that we're trying to get better about is kind of diversifying what we talk about. Mm-hmm. Because we talk about the Hodge family, but they're the only ones that we really have a lot of background on.
Yeah.
And there are a lot more characters from African-American history that we could pull from.
Well, yeah.
But we don't get a lot of volunteers. We don't get a lot of black volunteers.
There's also probably not a lot of black history because if you were a family back then that wasn't white, you weren't written about, you didn't have property, you know what I'm saying?
That's why it was so unusual to see their names in the paper.
So it's hard to find
that.
Stuff that's related to that.
Exactly. African American Museum is a great resource on that. And there's a book called African Americans of Wichita that we carry in our gift shop that's really good.
Oh, really?
It's got lots of good stories. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's hard when you are running a museum that has traditionally always focused on just the settlement period because then you're only focusing on the white settlers that came. Mm-hmm. So trying to then switch around and start talking about more diverse stories gets a little bit harder because you don't have that background. So then you have to go and research and, okay, which sites do we change and how do we incorporate that?
Right.
Which is kind of what we're in the middle of right now.
Because obviously Wichita Indians or Pawnee or whatever.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any of that stuff? Like
we do.
Indian, Native American stuff?
We do. We've got what we call our pre-settlement area, which starts up right when you leave the visitor center. There are, in the regular season, 3 teepees there around a trading post. And the story being that the Indians have come in to trade at the trading post.
Yeah.
So we tell that story. We tell the story of several of the tribes that were in the area. We're always working to improve that area. So that's something that we're continuing to work on. That's in kind of our strategic planning and our goals is to make that area better. But that was one of the things that I told my boss when I started as director. He said, well, what do you see as one of the problems that Cowtown has? And I said, we're too white. We're just white. That's all we are. We're too white.
Well,
What
you're in
can
a
we
weird
do?
position where it's like kids need to know the history of how black people were treated and how Indians were driven out of their own land,
Absolutely.
basically. But there's also, I mean, everything you have is white owned,
Yeah.
you know, so you're a white settlement, basically.
Exactly.
So it's kind of a weird thing to juggle. Like, how do we incorporate both
Yeah.
while they still know the history?
Yeah. And we want to teach accurate history, and that's the biggest thing is I don't want there to be anybody that walks away from Cowtown and says, I don't think that's true.
Yeah.
I want you to go to
You don't want to
Cowtown.
sugarcoat anything.
Exactly. It's like, oh, okay, I didn't realize that's how it was.
Yeah.
And history is meant, I mean, it's not meant to be, but it is just inherently by what it is. It's uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always going to be pretty. You're not always going to find out that your people did the right thing or that everybody, got along. It's not the way that it is. So
Yeah.
it's how do you tell that without it being terribly upsetting, being easy to digest for kids, but also still being truthful to what the story was.
Yeah.
And, there's lots of different places that go over that difficult history, like the Holocaust Museum
For sure.
has
yeah.
a horrible story to have
Crazy.
to tell. But they're able to tell it on a level like for kids and for adults and everything. So it's just kind of finding that balance.
Part of it, though, is recognizing that it is horrifying.
Yeah.
And letting them be horrified by that because...
Absolutely.
What's the old classic saying they say where history is bound to repeat itself if it's not...
if you don't know
If you
history,
don't learn it,
you're bound
it's
to
bound to
repeat
repeat it.
it.
Yeah.
So you
And-
have to learn it.
You have to learn it. And sometimes it's supposed to shake you up.
Exactly. And I think it's better, in my opinion, and this is not just because I'm a museum person, but I think you learn better in museums just because you're not being forced to learn it. You're able to go to whatever interests you and read about that and find out about that. And also, you're not just reading, especially at Cowtown. You're watching, you're seeing, you're getting immersed in it.
100%.
That's way better. That's why people like watching movies and YouTube videos more than they like reading a book.
100%.
Because you're being entertained while you're learning something.
And you're seeing it with your eyes.
Exactly. So you're experiencing it different than just reading it off a page. And I think that's why so many people hate history in school, but then like history at museums.
As they grow older and they visit places. And,
It
I'm a
makes
huge
a different
proponent of
connection.
that. Kids need to be hands-on with that
Yeah.
stuff, especially somebody like me. Like, I didn't give a shit what you put in front of me in a book. I'm like,
Right.
whatever. Why do I care about that guy
Exactly.
200 years ago,
Yeah.
But then if you show me his house
Yeah.
and I'm walking in it, I'm like, what? Like, this is
Yeah.
the house that guy lived in, then it changes your whole perspective.
Yeah, it gives you that different angle to look at it.
Yeah.
And my mom did that with me a lot when I was little. Anytime there was one of those historic marker signs, we stopped and, we went all sorts of places. And I won National History Day at the Kansas level when I was a freshman in high school. And so I got a trip to D.C. to go present in D.C., which everybody says should have been my first hint that I should have gotten involved in history. But I waited a really long time after that. So we went to D.C. and we stopped. We took a car and stopped at different places in Virginia, different historic sites. And I don't remember. I wish I did. I don't remember exactly where we were. But we were somewhere where Clara Barton had worked as a nurse.
Uh-huh.
And so I remember that I walked every single part of that room. Like I just went back and forth and I was like, okay, I've now stepped somewhere she stepped.
Taking it all in.
Yeah. And I knew I'd been somewhere she'd been. I covered the entire room. So that means I stood somewhere that she stood.
Yeah.
And looking back, I'm like, oh yeah, see, I was a nerd the whole time. I just didn't know it.
I'm kind of the same way, to be honest. I really am. I mean, I was lucky because my family did the same stuff. They would take us around historical spots, and like our vacations were usually like Gettysburg. It wasn't the beach,
Yep, that's what ours are.
And I'm thankful for that because there's a lot of cool shit that I got to see. And I'm like, man, I was standing where Benjamin Franklin was standing.
Exactly.
How crazy is that?
I know. That's what I've tried to do for my kids. The first time that we took them to DC, they were. My two oldest, I think, were in first and third grade the first time that we took them. And I remember about probably 6 months after we got back, we went to something at Exploration Place. And my oldest connected what they were talking about at Exploration Place to something that she saw at the Museum of Natural History when we were in D.C. And it was like, see, that makes it worth it. All that money that was spent on vacation, that makes it worth it.
You got to connect all the dots.
Exactly. But we've gone every year. We've gone to D.C. And this last year we took a road trip, drove from here to D.C. and back. That was super cool.
Yeah.
We had to stop at a lot
That's
of
a
really
long
cool
drive.
places. It's a very long drive.
Whew.
But we stopped at the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum in
The hell is that?
West Virginia. It's an old asylum from the 1800s that's now defunct.
It's like a spooky old asylum where you walk up and you're like, oh, ghost hunters has probably came through here.
They actually have.
Have they? Yeah.
We watched the episode when we got back to our Airbnb. We watched the episode of Ghost Hunters.
That brings me back to your museum, though.
Yeah.
Like, I wanted to get into this a little bit with the paranormal
Oh,
and the
yeah.
haunted.
Saw the ghosts.
Do you have ghosts there?
Okay, so do I have to get, like, can I give my honest answer? Or do I have to give, like, a politically correct answer?
Oh, you can say whatever the hell you want. I don't give a shit what you say.
We have some freaky shit that happens. I will tell you that. We have a lot of unexplained things that happen. There are some stories that have been embellished that I'm not 100% sure of the truth on, but I can tell you I've had some weird shit happen.
Is that right?
Yeah. One of the first things that happened to me, I was out at the farmhouse. And back when I was an interpreter, we had enough staff that we always had a farmer's wife, which was me. I must look like a farmer's wife because I always got stuck at the farm. So it was me and then one of the random guys. They rotated. I had several husbands. I was very... I guess
living the good life.
Yeah, very loose morals as a farm wife. And
well, you're farm wife and lady of the night, apparently.
Oh, well, that's
right?
true. That's true. I moonlight.
So
I was out there, and I heard the guy that was supposed to be playing my husband for the day upstairs. Well, at that time, we had a refrigerator up there, and it had like butter and milk and eggs and things you needed to cook. Yeah. Because I always had to cook something. And so I hollered up at him because I needed some stuff, and I was like, "Hey, can you get this?" And he didn't answer, but I could still hear him walking around. And so I called his name again, and it stopped. And then I felt like every hair on my arm stand up. It was like...
Nobody was there.
Yeah, and so I shut the door, and I walked over to the door of the farmhouse, and he was all the way out, like 3 buildings down.
Oh, God.
At the smokehouse. And I was like, who the hell was upstairs?
That gives me the goosebumps.
Yeah, so I talked to the farm manager.
And it was clearly footsteps.
Yes, it was very clearly footsteps. So I talked to the farm manager, and I was like, so, hey, I had this happen. And he's like, oh, yeah, that happens all the time. So, well, you could have given me a heads up that I was going to run into a ghost while I was out there. He's like, well, I don't know if that's what it is. So then shortly after that, Wichita Paranormal Research Society started investigating. And I was like, so, hey, I heard these footsteps at the farm. Can you guys just see if you can get them? I don't know what it is. Now that's one of the most popular things that's heard is the damn footsteps at the farm.
Is that right?
Yeah. And they recorded them. They recorded them the first night they were there. They got them. And I was like, oh, see, I'm not crazy.
That's
They're
crazy.
Right there. So that happened. I was in the Murdoch house, which is, by all accounts, the most haunted house that we have at Cowtown. Mm-hmm. Built in 1874 and moved to Cowtown in 1974. But the Murdoch's daughter died in there at 9 years old. She died of spinal meningitis. So it's the one that has the most ghost stories attached to it. So I was in there, and I was an interpreter. I was working in there for the Halloween event that we did, which is very different than the one we do now. It was a daytime event. So I went in, I set all my stuff down, and I put my chair where I needed it to be. And I heard this huge crash from upstairs. Like, it sounded like every shelf and everything fell upstairs. And we now lock the upstairs, but at that time we weren't locking the upstairs. So it had been left unlocked. So my first thought was, shit, somebody's upstairs.
Some kids messing around up there.
Somebody got into the upstairs. And so I saw one of the guys out in front of the house, and I went out and I was like, hey, I think somebody broke in. I heard something crash upstairs. Can you just go check it out? So he was like, oh, of course, yeah. So he went up. A couple minutes later, he comes down. He's like, sweetie, there's nobody up there. And I said, no, I heard something crash. Was there anything knocked over?
Nothing was broken or anything?
Yeah. And no, everything was fine. I was like, okay, fine, whatever. I've got a guest coming at that point. So I'm like, okay, get out of here. I'm going to talk to my guest. So I'm talking to the guest, and we're, 5-10 minutes into conversation, and we hear little footsteps just go doop, 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 across the upstairs, just running across the upstairs.
Like a young kid.
And she looks at me and she goes, who's upstairs? And I said, nobody. Because I'm like still trying to get my bravery on. And I'm like, nobody. It's like, well, somebody's up there. I heard him. I was like, shit, you heard that too. Okay. So I was like, well, I don't know. And so I finished up with her. And I went out front, and 2 of the guys were out there. And I was like, guys, even the guest heard it. Somebody is up there. I don't know if they were hiding from you, but somebody's up there. I heard the footsteps. The guest heard the footsteps. Somebody's up there.
You weren't willing to believe yet that it was paranormal.
No, to me, it had to be a person.
Yeah.
So they both go up there. They come back down. And they're like, honey, nobody's up there. I said, no, I heard them. The guest heard them. Somebody ran across. I'm like, well, I don't know what to tell you. There's nobody up there. I was like, okay, fine.
That's insane.
Whatever.
I've heard about the Murdoch house.
Yeah.
I've heard stories about
that.
I'm
sure your mom's probably told you so.
Oh, yeah, she has.
Yeah.
And, I'm one of those people where I would give anything to see a ghost, or
Yeah.
I want to believe so bad. It never
Yeah.
happens to me.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
We've got several people like that got a couple people on staff that went years and years and years without anything happening. And then this past, it might have been, it was either 2020 or 2021 during the winter. We were all sitting in the conference room, and clear as day, me and one of the other employees saw one of our employees come up and walk by the printer and walk toward another office. I mean, keys around his neck, the noise, the outfit, everything was this guy.
Employees.
We saw him. We saw him walk from the stairs to an office, just right across the doorway.
Are you saying like you saw an actor in old-timey clothes, or you saw somebody that you recognized, like that's the guy that we hired?
That's the guy that we hired. That's a guy that I know, that I've known for years. He had his keys around, because we all have lanyards that we carry our keys around our neck. He had his keys around his neck. He had his coat, his hat. It was him walking toward the office. And then he never came back. And this is someone that we all know is chatty. I mean, this man will not pass up a conversation to talk to anybody if he can avoid it. So he is going to find the first person and he's going to talk their ear off. And he never came down the hall. Even though all of us were sitting in the conference room, he didn't come down the hall. And I was like, that was him, right? And everybody in the room is like, well, I don't know. And the other person that saw it, she was like, no, yeah, that was him. I saw him too. I was like, okay. So she and I go down to the end of the hall and we look, and I forgot, this was right around Halloween time, and we put black plastic up.
Yeah.
And so where he would have walked, he would have had to have walked through this black plastic that we have stapled from the ceiling. I was like, well, I don't remember hearing the noise, but so we peek through there and the light's off, nobody's over there. So I finally called him. He was out of town. It wasn't him, but we both saw him. And since then, we've had so many people that have either seen or heard people that aren't there. One of our employees heard me when I was on one of my trips to Washington, D.C. She heard me in a storage building say something to her.
Well, okay. This is blowing my mind right now.
Yeah.
So this is a whole different realm of paranormal, because
it's weird.
In my mind, I'm thinking, okay, it makes sense. Like, there's energy attached to these objects or energy attached to these places. Right. And you might see something or hear something. That makes sense to me. But now you're talking about seeing people that work there right now.
Yep. In a building that was built in 1977. So, I mean, it's not even an old building.
Have you guys had your carbon monoxide levels checked?
I had, seriously, after the first time I had an experience in that building, because it was when I was still volunteer coordinator, and I would hear people having meetings. Like, clear as day, I swear it sounded like people just like that real low mumbling you hear when somebody's having a meeting far off. And it's like, what? I'm the only one in the building. Why am I hearing this? So I try to be logical all the time. So my first thought was, my computer is giving off like EMF fields and it's making me hallucinate.
It's making your brain go haywire.
Yeah. And so I got a hold of the ghost hunters, like, hey, so can you check my office? I think I've got high EMF coming off my computer. Like, I'm hearing things that I can't possibly be hearing. They came out and checked, and my office was totally fine. They couldn't find anything wrong with it. They've investigated the administration building now a couple of times, and they found some weird stuff.
Really? And this is the Wichita Paranormal Society?
Yeah.
Because I think that you've had the famous ones on too, right?
Yeah. We've had a couple of them. We had the Tennessee Wraith Chasers out. We've had Wichita Paranormal is who we usually use.
What about the guys on TV? Didn't you have them out?
The Tennessee Wraith Chasers are on TV. We've had them out. The guys from Ghost Hunters.
Ghost Hunters, yes.
They came for a private family reunion event, so they didn't do anything televised, but I got to give them a tour, which was super cool.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Like the real famous ones that you see?
Yeah, Jason Hawes from Ghost Hunters.
Okay,
yes.
yeah. Jason and Grant, right?
Yeah, Grant was no longer with them when they came out, but Jason was there and KJ was there.
That's awesome.
And so I got to give Jason a tour, and that was like, I was so embarrassed though. Oh my God. So the lady from WPRS, she tells him, she's like, when he got there, she walked up to him and she's like, I've got somebody for you to meet. And he said, okay. So she drags me over there to meet him. And she tells him in front of me that I let them come for free as long as I got to meet him. And I just really loved him and I wanted to meet him. And so I'm standing here looking at this guy and I'm like,
so your face is all red. You're like, yeah, that's me.
I know. And he was super cool. And he's just like, I'm really not that great. And I was like, okay. And so after we walked around, it was just like,
you felt like a big time fangirl.
Oh,
there.
I did. I felt so stupid.
You just got called out too.
I did. I felt so stupid. But he was super cool, and getting to walk around with him, he was really, really nice. He was super into history.
Yeah.
He didn't really want to hear the ghost stories. He wanted the history part.
Yeah.
And so that was neat, because whenever someone wants to connect with the history part, it's really cool. Like we had a Napoleon Dynamite. We had John Heater and Efren Ramirez from Napoleon Dynamite.
What?
Yeah, Napoleon and Pedro. They came out.
You're shitting me.
No, like 6 months ago. They came out, and
they were together.
Yeah,
Pedro and Napoleon.
Yes,
the
Pedro
actors.
and Napoleon, the actors, were together, and their publicist called, and he said that they were in Wichita, and the one thing they really wanted to do before they left was come to Cowtown. That was where they really, really wanted to go to Cowtown. And could we possibly work something out for them to go before they had to go to the airport? So we're like, sure. They said, well, you might need to open early, and we're like, whatever. If we get to meet them, we're fine with it.
Were they dressed as their parts in the movie, or
no, they were just dressed regular?
So they're just buddies in real life?
Yeah. And so they came out.
That's amazing.
I know. They came out, and we gave them a tour, and Napoleon was super into the history part. And so he was very serious and, wanted to hear all the history and wanted to talk about it. And Efren was like, what can I play with? What can I mess
Pedro?
with? What can I do? Yeah. It's like, what can I do? What can I do to have fun? Right. So, yeah, it was.
Did he say, cool?
They were both amazing. They were so sweet.
That's one of the coolest things I've ever heard.
Yeah, and they talked about
Napoleon Dynamite come to your museum.
We did, and I have lots of pictures. I'll show you pictures on my phone. I have a ton of pictures.
Just because they wanted to.
Yeah,
there was nothing
just
public going on.
No, we didn't tell anybody they were going to be there until after they left. We didn't make a big deal out of it. They just wanted to come and see it before they left Wichita. And Efren actually follows the Cowtown page on Instagram. He follows my personal Instagram.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
He'll comment on things every once in a while. He calls us his family. We send him texts after they left. One of our employees has Efren's personal cell phone number, and so he'll text him. But we texted after they left, and we're like, "We miss you," and sent him sad faces, and they sent us sad faces back. And yeah, they were just so cool.
That just goes to show, sometimes they're just normal people.
They
just
are.
want to go explore stuff.
Yeah, they didn't want to be bothered, and that was something that's kind of neat that you can offer when you have a place like Cowtown, that you can just say, hey, you can come and be you, and we can make sure nobody messes with you. Like, we can make sure that nobody knows you're here.
Uh-huh.
You can just come and be a person for a day and not be a celebrity.
Yeah.
And so it was really fun getting to hang out with them. They were really,
That's
really
amazing.
Cool. Yeah. They played on the hand car, and they played in the blacksmith shop, and they just had fun.
So people might be able to go there now and say, like, this is where Napoleon Dynamite stood.
Exactly.
And just completely disregard all the history behind it,
Yeah,
right?
they could just make it into like a tourist trap. But yeah, that was really, really fun.
That's a pretty cool aspect of your job.
Yeah. That's, it's not often, but it's very cool.
Yeah. What would you say is the best part about being the director of Cowtown?
Oh, getting to guide the direction of what we do, getting to create events and interact with the public on different levels.
Just being involved like that?
Yeah, I love getting to talk to our guests. Like, we do murder mysteries now.
Yeah.
And those are something that are on a completely different level from anything that we've done, because we're all interacting the same. So as volunteers and staff, we all get on the same level and be just a big team, and you get to see the volunteers and the staff working together like they don't usually get to do, and then you bring in the public with it. And so for the last one, we did a 1980s prom, and I was the class
1980s prom in Cowtown?
Yes, we did a 1980s prom
1980s, not 1880s.
Nope, 1980s. Before that, we did 1920s, and we did a murder at the Deadwood Saloon, and so we've done a bunch of different ones. But the 1980s prom, I was the class vice president, so I was very social, and I had to talk to everybody. And so you get to go around and talk to the guests, and then when you talk to them out of character, and you get to say, oh yeah, I'm actually the director, and blah, 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 they have a whole different perspective because they've spent the whole night interacting with the staff, and they didn't know it. They didn't know they were talking to the curator or the director, or, they had no idea. So they get to...
So you kind of get to play a part and then watch their expression as they find out, like, oh, shit.
Exactly.
This is the lady that runs the place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, most of them are super sweet. A few of them will email me after I have suggestions. But most of the people are very, very sweet.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's
and
really cool.
It's neat. And it's like, a nice little ego boost. And everybody's like, oh, this is director. And they're like, oh, yay. And I'm like, right? I know.
Right? Look at me. I'm not just the farm lady.
Right? I'm not just a farm wife.
I'm not just the farm wife they took from the farm and made her cook out here, right?
Exactly. I give Anthony, he's our director of education and interpretation. I give him crap all the time because he's the one that was my boss when I was at the farm all the time. And I was like, so you think I just look like a farm wife? Is that what it is? Do I look homely to you? Is that what it is?
How about we make you the farm boy now?
Right? Now you're going to have to
get out there and shovel some shit.
That's right. You're not shoveling manure.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what's your daily life like? Like when you're out there just working at Cowtown, are you working Monday through Friday? Do you work whenever you want? How does that work?
I work a lot. My Google on my phone actually thinks that Cowtown is my home.
That's amazing.
Yeah. If I put in home, it puts in Cowtown's address because I'm there so much. So I don't have, I have to work the 9 to 5 just because of the administrative side of what I do. So as far as the city goes, I have to do that. But then I also have things like, gun safety training that happens on a weekend, or this weekend is cleanup days. So I'm at work all day Saturday and Sunday, and then I have a board meeting on Monday. So I have to go right back into it. Like there are times I don't get days off, but, and I have people ask me all the time how I don't burn out. And it's like, 'cause I love it.
Yeah.
I just do it.
You're passionate about it.
Yeah. That's what needs to be done. So yeah, my schedule is absolutely crazy. And then you throw in like a ghost hunt and,
See, that'd be fun as hell though, right?
Oh, the ghost hunts are really fun.
The fact that you get to call out your job, like we're going to do a ghost hunt this weekend.
The ghost hunts are fun. It's different watching some of the people in ghost hunts because they're kind of weird. We had a dude howl at a ghost hunt.
Howl at the moon?
Shit you not. No, he was howling to call the spirits. So me and Angela, our volunteer director, were in the downstairs of Lakeside, and all of a sudden I hear somebody upstairs, and you hear it just, yep, that's exactly, yep. And I looked at her and I was like, is somebody howling? It's like, what? I'm like, is somebody howling? Do you hear that? Do you hear the noise?
And she's he wasn't a werewolf.
Because he admitted it when he came downstairs. So she's like, yeah, I think I do. So then he comes downstairs, and somebody else that was down there with us said, did you guys hear somebody howling? And this guy's like, oh yeah, that was me. So you have to do a certain tone to get on the vibrational level with the spirits. So I was just getting there,
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was totally serious.
So that guy was probably into some dark shit in his own personal life.
Probably, because he followed up with telling us that the mirror that was in the office was a portal to the other side.
I would like to see what that guy's house looks like.
Right?
He's probably got like a pentagram laid out and candles and,
God only knows what kind of weird shit he was into, but it was strange. It was like, I don't even know what to say to you right now because,
Right on, man.
I mean, that's how you call the spirits. You call the spirits.
To each their own,
Yeah, get them to come over.
If that's your crew, the spirit world.
The spirit world. then that's his dogs.
Have at it. Like. You're in the right place probably with all the paranormal stuff.
Right. Now we've got some other simple stuff that happens too, like, just lights turning off and on, or just footsteps that you hear. Yeah. So we've got really minor stuff, and then you've got the really weird stuff.
So what do you think that is?
I have no idea. I would love to know, and nobody can explain it to me.
Yeah.
They always, the hearing voices of people that are actually real people and seeing images on them, they call doppelgangers. Mm-hmm. Say it's a doppelganger thing. But nobody can explain to me why it's just now happening. Why are we just now having that phenomenon happen?
And why is it crossing over to people that you work with now?
Right. Well, and it happened.
That seems like a totally different thing.
Yeah. Well, it happened several years ago. There was one of our volunteers that swears that he heard me. His name was Ron Parker, and I always called him Mr. Parker. And he swears that when I was in another building far away with several other people as witnesses that I was in that location, he heard me call his name in the street and say, "Hey, Mr. Parker." And he turned around and said, "Yes, ma'am." And I wasn't there. He's like, so I had to call somebody and find out where you were. And I said, yeah, I was in Trapper's cabin at that time investigating with two other people.
Yeah.
So it's just weird. And that was like probably 10 years ago. So why isn't imitating people that are there? And it most frequently imitates me. So I don't know if it just likes me or if I'm just the one that's there the most. So
maybe they're attached to your soul.
Oh, God. That's a terrifying thought.
Well, it's weird that it's happening to other people.
Yeah.
Like, it's one thing if the director lady's losing her mind, right?
Exactly. But it's happening to other people. It's not just me.
The fact that everybody's experiencing that same thing.
Uh-huh.
Have you guys opened up a portal?
Maybe. I bet it's that mirror. If we howl at the mirror, we can close the portal.
You should go up there and howl one night when you're alone. That. When you're alone at night,
you're
closing up the museum.
Has to be alone because otherwise I'll be too embarrassed.
Get up there and give a good ow.
With my luck, 3 people would walk in and be like, "What you doing?" Nothing.
Nothing.
I was just
testing the mirror out.
Yeah, I was
testing my vocal range.
I wanted to see what I looked like howling. never
That's
checked
crazy.
that out before.
I would love to know what ghosts are. Because like I said, I'm on board with the theory that
me too.
That there's energy tied to things and that you're kind of seeing a repetitive.
Yeah, like the residual kind of stuff. Yeah. And I know that we have some.
What's the other stuff?
I don't know. And that's the part that's weird to me. That was the part I couldn't wrap my head around because when I started, I could wrap my head around, okay, there's stuff to attach to objects or to buildings. There's, in the Murdoch house, there is something that walks across the kitchen repeatedly.
Yeah.
That seems like something that's like that. That's just on kind of that's almost like a tape recorder just playing.
Mm-hmm.
But what's this other stuff? And where did it come from? And is it...
And why is it...
Yeah.
Why is it mimicking? Maybe that's what it's doing. It's mimicking people that work there now.
Yeah. And it's
just kind of freaky.
It is. Because I know I heard, there was one day I was in my office and I heard one of the employees come in and she always comes in, well, she used to, always come in on her cell phone. That
beer is foamy.
That was very foamy.
The hell, BJ? Your beer's foaming up on me. Do you need another beer, by the way? Are you good?
Yeah, I'm almost done with this one.
Almost done?
Yep.
Damn, we killed that sixer.
Look at us go with our healthy livers.
Well, our lifespan is still going to be longer than somebody in the 1800s, probably.
Well, that's true. That's true.
We got that.
At least we got that. Let's see if mine does it. Oh.
A little bit.
Not quite as much as yours.
A little bit.
No, it's good.
Well, we've gone through the whole paranormal.
Yeah, and it's weird. The paranormal is weird. I like talking about it because there's so much to talk about, but it also makes you sound a little bit crazy.
That's fine though. I mean, if you're experiencing it, you're experiencing it.
Well, and it's
people
weird.
People can call bullshit if they want, but you're not making it up.
No, and it's not just me that experiences it. If it were just like you said, if it's just the directors going crazy hearing shit, okay, but it's multiple members of the staff that have heard different things. Oh yeah, like I was saying, I heard one of my employees come in. She's always on her cell phone. I heard her talk on her cell phone. I heard her go in her office. I heard the sound of her putting her stuff down. And then she never came in my office, which was weird because she always came in my office. But that day she didn't. And so I went down to her office and she wasn't there. So I called her and I'm like, hey, where are you? She's like, oh, I'm still in Mulvane. I haven't come into work yet.
That's bizarre.
I heard you.
Doesn't that make you question your own mind a little bit?
It does. That was why the first couple times this stuff happened, that was why I had WPRS check it out because I'm like, I'm going crazy. Yeah. But I always tried to be so logical with it. Like, there has to be a logical explanation for this.
Yeah.
And you work at Cowtown long enough, and apparently logic doesn't matter anymore.
It just goes out the window.
It does.
That's pretty badass.
On so many levels.
I like that, though. Like, something to me is drawn to this little oasis of an old, of an old city or town, basically, based in the 1800s that has these weird things going on. That's like a movie.
It is. Plot, I've said that so many times that we need to, make some kind of horror movie or something at Cowtown. It's just a natural setting.
Or like a Twilight Zone.
Oh, that would be cool.
Remember on Twilight Zone where they would go to a place like that and then things start acting a little strange and they're like, wait.
Uh-huh.
And then it's actually back in 1880.
And that'd be so cool. Like, just one by one, you all get transported. And that would be so cool. Yeah, and you think you're just with actors.
You're just, oh yeah, look, man, they're really into
their roles. Yeah. Nope, you're in the 1880s, haha. Yeah, it'd be really cool. I think about that sometimes when I'm walking through there. I think the thought I have the most when I'm walking through the town by myself.
Yeah.
And I'll sit down on the boardwalk and look around and go, holy shit, I'm responsible for all of this.
That's a weird feeling, right?
It is. The first time that I did that, I was like, oh my God, I could fuck
Doesn't make any
so
sense.
So bad. I could really mess this up.
You burn the place down, and all you have to answer to is you.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
I'm not going to do that. But yeah, I mean, it was the first time that I realized like all of this is on my head. It was like, oh, okay. So now the goal is don't go crazy and just figure out how to do this.
Yep. Listen to the voices. Talk to the employees that aren't there.
Exactly.
And just take care of business.
Talk to all the people that don't exist, and they'll tell you how to do everything. It's fine. Yeah.
Well, you're going to have to let me stay the night in there one night.
Oh,
now.
you'll have to. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
I've stayed the night in several different buildings.
Because that would freak me out, I think. And I do like being scared. You know, I was one of those weird kids that like to go to haunted houses. Or
Me too.
even like, you know, one thing that I really like is going into like an abandoned house.
Oh, I love that. Yes.
And you just walk around and you're like, a family used to live in here. Some guy dedicated his life to building this house.
And
now it just sits here and all the doors and windows are gone.
Yeah.
It's such a weird thought.
It is. I love those places though.
Yeah.
There's a place, and I cannot remember what town we were in. I wish I could, because it's right here. It's not that far away. And they had a school there that was completely abandoned. Mm-hmm. No doors, no windows. I mean, you could see the structure of the school. There were still some chalkboards and desks, but it was mostly abandoned, and it was the coolest place.
I love that.
Yeah. I was like, I could just hang out here all day. This is so cool.
I do have a bucket list of places that I just want to go that I know are abandoned.
Yeah.
Like ghost towns.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. It's just like morbid curiosity. Like, holy shit, like this place is just gone. Everybody picked up and left. And
it's weird. Ghost towns are weird because some of them, they didn't even really take a lot with them. They just kind of like, okay, and we're deuce now and we're going. And they left a lot of stuff behind. And
there's a place out here. All my family basically is from Colwich and Andale out here west, you know.
Okay, yeah.
And there's a place, I don't know exactly where it's at, and I don't even know if it's true. But I grew up hearing from my older cousins that there was a farmhouse out here where the family just disappeared. And they had like dinner and everything laid out on the table, all of their belongings, all of their clothes.
And then they just...
gone.
Wow.
Never to return, and everything is just... And when they found the house, you know, the food was getting rotten on the table.
Well, yeah.
Everything is still there, and they're just all gone. And I don't know where this place is. I don't know.
That's
it's probably
weird.
a fairy tale or a ghost story, you know. But that does fascinate me. Things
as
like
older
that,
cousins and siblings do. They tell you all the lies.
Yeah.
Like, hey, there's this place.
But if it was a real place, I would like to go there.
Oh, I would
and
too.
Look around. Like
that would be so cool.
Mm-hmm.
You find it, let me know.
I will.
I'll be there with you.
I will.
Yeah, I love that kind of stuff. Just the forgotten past, I guess, is really cool. And that was what that asylum was really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, they had, the first floor was all like museum, so they had a lot of stuff preserved. But then the rest of the floors were still kind of in like disrepair and unfinished, and so cool.
Just left
so
as
cool.
they were.
Yeah, with ghosts and all sorts of stuff. But
there's like, if you look up pictures of like Chernobyl, you know, or Chernobyl or whatever.
Chernobyl's crazy.
Yeah. Where they literally just left everything because they had to,
Yes.
and you can walk in there now.
Yeah.
If you're willing to risk all the cancer and stuff.
Yeah, the radiation, minor thing. It's okay. Bypass that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That Chernobyl is creepy.
It's weird.
Yeah.
It's weird.
It is. I think that's why I like the Silent Hill movies.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's just like abandoned town,
Gives
but
you
it's
that
not
feel.
really abandoned. Yeah. Yeah. Well, just
Scratches that itch.
Yeah. I would love to be able to go to some of those places. I've looked up some ghost towns, and people have called Cowtown a ghost town. It's like, yeah, but not really, because it was never actually a town that was abandoned. It was put together to be a museum. So it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got kind of the same.
It's got a towny feel to it now.
Yeah.
There are ghosts.
Oh, absolutely.
So
really weird ones.
Yeah.
But it's not the same as going to one of those places that's just abandoned.
Yeah.
Because that school was super cool. And then we were doing it as part of, this is going to sound so stupid. We were doing it as part of a scavenger hunt. Mm-hmm. So there was this big, it's called the greatest scavenger hunt the world has ever seen. Greatest international scavenger hunt the world has ever seen. They don't do it anymore, but at the time they did. And so you were supposed to go to an abandoned place like that and then dress up as ghosts and do things. And so we took sheets with us. And so we have pictures of like conducting class in one of the abandoned schoolrooms.
That was a real thing.
Oh, yeah. We really did that. Yeah.
I love it. So nerdy, but so cool.
Exactly. We did a lot. Yeah. Well, I like I said, I discovered I was a nerd when I was like 15, Hey, I'm a nerd. It's okay. That's all right.
Well, what do you have to say to fellow nerds out there? If somebody's nerding out and they're like, hey, I'd love to be in charge of a museum someday. What's your advice for them?
Oh my God. I wish I had something profound to say right now, like that there
Just
was
like a
some
deep
path.
Morgan Freeman voice quote.
Yes, I could say something very profound. And really, I feel like a lot of mine was luck. But no, if you're really interested in the museum field, studying museum studies and history are the most important things. I would say I got the Master's in Public Administration.
Mm-hmm.
I think Master's in Business Administration would be really helpful too, which is my next goal. But yeah, education is the most, especially if you're wanting to do museum work.
Do you need to be pretty business savvy and like number savvy if you want to be in charge of a museum?
Absolutely. There's so many numbers. I hate numbers so much.
But you're still there.
But I'm still there because I do the numbers. I'm just right in the middle of doing a lot of numbers. So, yeah, this was my break from numbers, is to get my chat with you so I don't have to do the numbers again. But yeah, it's a lot of, you really need a lot of business acumen to run the museum properly, to be able to know how to make those important decisions. I came in with a lot of experiential knowledge of knowing how Cowtown works and what works for Cowtown. I didn't have the business side of it as much, and that's my only.
And you kind of just adapted as you progressed through your career.
I learned it, but I think it would have been a lot easier had I had that background before I took over that position. So
it's probably also important though, if you're passionate about a place or a museum, and you want to be in charge of it, you should probably work there for a while before you do.
I think the knowledge that I gained working my way up is more valuable than anything that anybody could have taught me.
Yeah.
Because I have a knowledge of Cowtown operations that not very many people do.
Yeah.
And
because you grew through the roles.
Exactly.
You grew through the roles all the way to the top.
And that was one of my arguments when I was fighting for the position was I know any decision I make, I know exactly how that's going to affect everybody at every level under me.
Yeah.
Because I've done every job. I've either done or assisted with every job at the museum.
That in itself is very important.
So, yeah. And if somebody's sick, I can step in and do their work for them. No problem. Because I've made sure that I know how to do everything.
Been there, done that.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
And I think that's the most important part, because then you can keep it going when everybody else is sick or anything else, you got it covered.
Yeah.
Which is scary, but good.
You didn't just get dropped in by corporate. Like,
right.
Yep, you're in charge now.
Exactly.
You don't give a shit about any of the history or anything.
You don't care about this, but you have to run it. Yeah, no. I actually am very invested in it, so that makes a big difference.
Well, all right. Do you have any last words or anything you want to say to people out there, or any rumors you want to clear up?
I don't think there are any rumors.
People you want to call out?
I don't think so. I'm going to get myself in trouble.
Where can everybody find you?
At work.
At work. So if you're looking for Old Cowtown or Jacky, just go to Cowtown. Go to Cowtown.
Yeah, you can email me, but nobody can ever spell my last name. But you can email me at jgoerzen@wichita.gov. But that's where I'm usually at. Yeah,
that's in my description, folks. Check it out.
Yep.
Go click on it. But you're on Facebook and Instagram and stuff too, right?
Yeah, and I run Cowtown's Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. So if you message me, message Cowtown on any of those, you get me.
So it's at Old Cowtown Museum.
Yeah.
Is that your handle?
I think so. I think it's Wichita Cowtown.
Wichita Cowtown?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's either Wichita Cowtown. It depends which platform. Some of them are Wichita Cowtown. Some of them are Old Cowtown Museum. Yeah. So.
Well, people Google it. If they Google Wichita Cowtown, they'll find it.
Actually, if you Google me, you'll find Cowtown.
Yeah.
I did that one time. I was like, hey, I wonder what's under my name. Cowtown.
Pulls right up.
That's all that's there.
That's good. That's what you need these days.
Yep.
You need that front page search engine status, right?
Yep.
And for everybody listening out there, all that stuff's in my description. You can find it. Go click on it. Instagram, Facebook, website, email.
Yep.
Jacky's personal number, whatever you need.
Probably.
Well, thanks for everything you do for the community. Thank you for everything you do at Cowtown, preserving all that knowledge and preserving all those artifacts.
Of course.
Thank you for coming on here. Of course, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you for your patience and
it's been
getting
fun.
me on here.
Yeah. We've been trying for a while, and it's finally gone down.
Yes, so I'm so happy.
I appreciate it. And we had some beers tonight. We had fun.
Did.
So
and I still have some with you. So.
Cheers, ma'am.
Cheers.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
And cheers to Cowtown.